Welcome to the sewing instructions for the Back to the Basics Sewing Machine Organizer by Sewers Club. If you received this pattern in the September 2020 box, you'll have received accompanying fabrics to make this project in one of three possible color combinations from the Tula Pink homemade line. You might have received this blue combination with the blue sewing machine fabric, the measuring tapes, and safety pins. You might have received a purple color combination, or this green, orange, and pink combination that we will be using in this video. You'll have also received fusible fleecy to make the project. To begin, we're going to be starting with the direction of the fabric when cutting. So first we're going to start with exterior A and exterior C. When cutting these fabrics, they're going to be 19 high by 20 wide, both of them, 19 high by 20 wide. And you want to orient your design vertically so that this is the top and this is the bottom. As you can see here, I focused the scissors downward as they have eyes here and a hand in the middle. So I have my design vertically oriented with the bottom here and the top here. The same as well for the backing piece, which is exterior C, 19 high by 20 wide. As you can see here, my fabric isn't directional, but I would follow the same thing as I did with exterior A for exterior C. The piece that is probably the most important is exterior B when cutting. This is going to be your pocket piece, and if the direction is off or your print is upside down, it's going to be the most noticeable since it is the pocket on the front of your sewing machine organizer. So what you want to do is you want to cut your fabric 13 high by 20 wide, and you want to focus your design to the bottom portion here. You want it to be vertically oriented, and you also want it centered here. So what's going to happen later on is this is going to be folded with wrong sides together, like so, and this is going to be your pocket. So this bottom 6.5 inch piece is very important. You want it aligned so that it's centered horizontally, and you also want it vertical so that this is the top and this is the bottom, and it looks like that. So moving on, we're going to start with our first step, which is fusing our fusible fleecy to the back of exterior A. We will be using this pink fabric, and we will return when that is done. So for the first preparation step, we're just fusing exterior A to our fusible fleecy, and you want to ensure that you're fusing the wrong side of your fabric to the glue side of your fusible. You can feel the difference. One side is very soft and the other side has the glue on it. If you have any trouble with fusing, you can follow the manufacturer's instructions that are listed here at the bottom of the monthly card. So now that you've fused your fusible fleecy to the wrong side of exterior A, we're going to move on to quilting your fabric. So although this step doesn't say optional, it is optional. You don't have to quilt it, but you can if you wish. So you can sew around the scissors as a design. If your fabric has florals, you can do flourishes. You can do squiggly lines, straight lines, diagonal lines. I'm personally not going to be quilting mine, but I am going to do a demonstration on how we do our squares when we quilt, like the pattern shows here. So what we first do is we get our ruler and we put it at an angle. Usually I like to go corner to corner. If it's a square, I'll go corner to corner so that it's exactly on that angle. But because my ruler isn't long enough and my fabric's a little too large, I just picked an angle here from the top corner to along the bottom side down here. And so I just took my marking pen and drew that line. And then because I want 1 inch squares, I took my ruler 1 inch. I marked 1 inch from that line, and then I drew my next line. Then another 1 inch from that line, my next line, and then 1 inch from my line, I drew my next line. And so now the next step is very important. If you want diamonds, you can do your next line across them at any angle you wish. So if I want a diamond, I can draw my line here, and then 1 inch from that, here. And you see how that gives me a nice diamond? I can do it like that. But if I want squares, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay attention to the horizontal line here. See how I'm aligning it across here? And I'm going to draw my line. See here? And I would draw the whole line across. I'm just doing a little demonstration for different squares and diamonds. Then from that line that would go from here, I would go again aligning this green line that I've already marked with my ruler here, and then 1 inch here, and draw my next line. So now I have a perfect 1 inch square versus here I have the diamond. So those are the two ways. You can either do diamonds, squares, or you can even just do horizontal lines, straight lines, squiggly lines. It's really up to you. It's a very customizable for the kind of design you want and desire on your sewing machine organizer. Again, like I said, I'm not going to be quilting mine, so I'm just going to iron these lines off because I am using an iron away pen. So now that I've ironed away my lines from my demonstration of squares and diamonds, I'm going to get my piece of exterior B that measures 13 inches by 20 inches. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half with wrong sides together. I'm going to bring those 20-inch sides together so that they meet. And you see how this side is upside down? I'm going to make sure that the side that is right side up is showing, as you can see here, because this is going to go to the bottom of exterior A, like so, and that's going to be your pocket. So before we do that, we're going to do a top stitch along this folded edge to create a nice edge for our pocket. As you can see here, I have a completed sewing machine organizer, and the top stitch here creates a nice edge for the pocket later on. So I'm just going to take that and do the top stitch. Now that my top stitch is done on the exterior B pocket piece, I used the coral thread from the September box. I'm just going to bring this exterior B piece to the bottom of my exterior A piece. Notice the print. This is the bottom here. I'm going to bring this here and I'm going to line it with the bottom corner, match all my raw edges. Now you can do a basting stitch to hold everything in place around here, here, and here. But if you're doing your pocket seams now, they'll hold your bottom piece in place. If you are leaving your pocket seams till the end after the top stitch step to sew all the layers together, you might want to do a basting stitch right now so that it's when you're sewing all the way around that all the layers are held down in place. But in terms of the pocket seams, I'm going to show you how I like to do them right now. So in the pattern, you're told to find the middle, like so. You find the middle, and you mark that middle. And because it's a 20-inch piece, that should be 10 inches right in the middle there. And what you do is you draw that line in the middle with your marking pen. Then 4.75 inches from that line, you draw another one. And 4.7 inches, you draw another one this way, another line and another line. And those will give you 4 evenly distributed pockets. And feel free to move those around. For mine, because my sewing machine is right in the middle, I don't want to put a pocket seam right down the middle of that sewing machine. So what I did was I found an area in between here, and that's where I decided to put my pocket seam. So these pockets here are 6.5 inches, 6.5 inches, and then this middle one, let's get my ruler here, this middle one is 7 inches. Since 20 couldn't be evenly distributed by 3, I did it that way. So I just drew those lines there, and now I'm going to do a seam here and here to secure my pockets. I'm going to have 3 pockets. And make sure when you're doing these pocket seams, if you're trying to get something to fit in a certain size pocket, remember your seam allowance. So here on the edge, you're going to have 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch on the bottom. So if you're trying to fit, for example, this pattern in a pocket, make sure to pay attention that you're going to have 1/2 inch here. So you don't want to make your pocket too small and not account for seam allowance. Always account for that seam allowance. And also the thickness of your item. If your item is too thick and you make the pocket too small, it's not going to be able to fit because it's flat here. So those are just some things to think about when doing the seams. You can follow the different pocket seams from the pattern, the distribution there, or you can pick your own like I did here. So I'm just going to sew these seams and I'll be right back. Now that the 2 pocket seams are sewn, here and here, I made sure to go ahead and backstitch a bunch of times on both of the seams here when I started sewing, because I wanted to ensure that if anything heavy was in these pockets, that this would be nice and secure and it wouldn't fall apart. As you can see there and there. And I also started sewing always at the top here because I find sometimes when you're sewing these pockets, the fabric may stretch or move downward when you're sewing. And you don't want to start at the bottom here and be going up and all of a sudden you have pieces that are higher and then some are lower because of the way the fabric is moving. So I always start here at the top to ensure that this edge is perfectly straight and where I want it to be. So now that that's done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the backing piece, the exterior C, and we're going to put it with right sides together on top of here, like so. You can put some pins all the way around, and what you're going to do is you're going to leave an opening up here. I like to leave about a 3-inch opening because I want to make it easier for me to turn. You don't want to do it too small and you stretch the opening when you're turning it inside out. So I like to leave a good enough opening, 3 inches at least. If you're more comfortable with a little more, just make an opening of whatever you're comfortable with. And so you're going to sew all the way around, following that 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then you're going to turn it inside out using that opening that we're going to leave up here. Try not to leave the opening down here because you have so many layers down over here. You have so many layers that you don't want to leave that opening down here and have to deal with later on fixing that opening before the top stitch with all these layers. It's better to leave it in an area like over here or on these sides where you're not going to have a lot of layers to deal with. Here is the most preferable location because you're going to have your sewing machine right on top of this, and this part's going to hang off the edge, that the sewing machine is most likely going to cover this part depending on where you put it. So I'm just going to sew these together with the right sides together, and I'll be right back. And make sure to pay attention to the direction of your fabric when sewing. Make sure that you don't have any of these layers upside down. So if this is down, you want this also down. So I'll be right back. So I just sewed all the way around the sewing machine organizer and turned it inside out from that opening we left at the top. And I pressed it and sewed a top stitch to secure that opening. If you haven't done the sewing pocket division seams like I have here, and you left them for the very end after the top stitch, you can do them now. But if you sewed them when I sewed them, then you're officially done. You're back to the basics sewing machine organizer by Sewers Club. If you aren't already subscribed to Sewers Club, you can do so at sewersclub.com.